Some of you might like to know a little bit more about our drummer.
Now going back to 40 years of Chick Webb.
Is drummer right? Is it okay to say drummer?
Pounding his pulsing beat into the hearts of all America.
You motherfuckers are fucking all over this joint.
You do your kind of drumming, and I'll do my kind of drumming.
I have no more time. You don't know what I love again.
The only things I care about in this goddamn life are me and my drums and you.
The official explanation was he choked on vomit.
You suppose maybe I could put the drums in your place and sort of drop in once in a while?
Now back to Gene Krupa's syncopated style shortly.
Get up there behind those drums, lean back, close your eyes, get right in the groove there, give it a good steady beat.
I got blisters on my fingers!
I'd hit that.
I'm in New York City with Steve Lukather. Steve, thanks for doing this, man.
No problem, man. Happy to help out.
Steve has agreed to talk about Jeff Porcaro, and I figured we'd jump to the beginning if we can. You went to high school together.
Well, I went to high school with Steve Porcaro, and that's how I met Jeff and Mike and the whole family, and how I met David Page.
What was the 3 years age difference?
Yeah, Jeff was he was already legendary before I ever met him. You know, the legend of Jeff Porcaro had a hit in North Hollywood. We had like almost 0 degrees of separation because I actually kind of met him by accident when I was about 12 years old. He was best friends with this guy, Kelly Shanahan, whose girlfriend at the time was this girl, Meryl Brown, and I was in a band with her little brother, Bobby, when we were 11 years old. And I saw this guy with glasses walking through. Years later, come to find out that was actually Jeff. Now, the other weird situation was Jeff and Dave were in Sonny and Cher's band.
Right.
Now, my father was in the movie business and was doing a movie with Sonny and Cher.
What did your dad do?
He was an assistant director.
Okay.
Behind the camera, production manager, assistant director. You see his name on Happy Days and Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie and stuff like that late at night. That's my dad, So, it's weird. And I met Sonny and Cher then, and then the whole connection of all this, it's this, if you put it on a grid and try to figure this all out, how do we all get together? We strangely were, I guess, somewhat destined to meet. When I met Steve, first off, I went and saw his band, and it was incredible. I said, I want to play with this guy. And then I heard about Jeff, and then when we met Jeff, he was already like this legendary magical cat, man. And I don't think I've ever met anybody with more charisma and vibe and soul and heart and depth. And when he jammed with us when we were just kids in school, he was in Steely Dan, it was like, we were just like, we want to be like, I want to play with this guy, whatever it takes to play with him and Page and the guys that they work with, all the legendary studio guys. That's what I wanted to do. And that was the dream anyway. And Jeff sort of took a shine to all of us, and my God, he was probably one of the most important people I've ever known in my whole life. He just changed the game for me, took a shine to me and made a lot of things happen. He did that for a lot of people, man, not just me. So many musicians, countless people he helped very quietly, and sometimes they didn't even know it. Mm-hmm. He was gracious, magical, charismatic, and the hippest guy in the room always. Just knew, heart of gold, deep musically, but he could be intense too if something was wrong. Artistic, always had his finger on what was happening before everybody else did. Mm-hmm. And probably the best drummer I've ever worked with in my life. And I've worked with some really amazing drummers, and it's not in any way a put down to anybody else outside of Jeff. But Jeff, for me, there was a connection that was spiritual, man. I still feel him with me every day. I know it's weird to say that after 21 years, but the big brother I never had and all that, his advice, and sometimes, he would set me down and go, hey, look, bro, this is where it's at, His critiques I took very seriously, because much as love as there was, he could be the big brother and go, look, man, this is how I see, you need some work on this, even as a human being. So, like I said, it was very much of a brotherly relationship, and my deep love for the entire Porcaro family, it's like they're my own family, I consider them like my second family. Steve Porcaro is one of my very best friends I've ever had in my life, and certainly, his mom and dad, I spent so much time at their house, and little sister Jolene is very close in my heart. and Mike, obviously, who's going through some really deep shit right now with the ALS. He's hanging in, man. That's the best thing I can tell you right now. I mean, we're trying to raise awareness for the ALS Foundation. Obviously, we're taking care of him and his family, because that's what we do. We take care of our own.
That's very true.
And Mike and Jeff together, I mean, what a rhythm section. Steve and meeting David Page, I learned how to really write songs and produce records sitting next to David Page, and the people that I learned from because of meeting them. And my credibility and my stock went through the roof when I got the thumbs up from Jeff and Dave in LA, and I met all the other studio guitar players and all the other studio musicians. Met David Foster, who was another guy that was, instrumental in my early parts of my career of making me who I am now, or whatever I'm supposed to be anyway. But Jeff, magic, just the words are synonymous, and just soul, heart and soul. I was honored to have him in my life, and I miss him very much every fucking day, man. Every day.
When I spoke to Kurt Biscara, he talked about how Jeff helped him out, like you were saying, very behind the scenes, silently, and then came in and really took him under his wing. And he mentioned that Jeff he said he had a charisma like no other, like you were saying. He walked into a room. And
when he walked into a room, it lit up, man.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was on a session, man, he just knew it was going to be a great day, and he also knew you were going to get a track. And producers knew that too. Yeah. I worked with him a lot. We got hired together a lot.
Right.
I mean, I saw him almost every day for years.
Did he start bringing you in? Is that how it?
Well, I mean, he gave me he recommended me for a lot in the beginning and introduced me to everybody who I became friends with, who then through worked my way. But I owe a lot to Jeff. When Jeff gave the thumbs up to me, my stock went up. And when they knew I was playing with Boz's band, he got me in that. And when Les Dudek split, he says, "We don't need another guitar player. It's Luke, man. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Let's go. Let's play this stuff." And Boz, I was 19 years old, Yeah, and he had known me since I was, pretty much 14 and a half, 15 years old. And, he was just always really positive and very nurturing towards me. But, I had to bring it. When somebody gives you a shot, you have to show up, and you can't just walk through it. Mm-hmm. You have to, okay, here's your shot, man. Now it's your turn. Sure. I had to, but there was a big responsibility. I didn't want to let him down. Never wanted to let him down. But then, as I got into the scene more and worked my way up through the ranks. A lot of the guys, my peers, my guitar peers, Rittenauer, Carlton, Graydon, and those guys, they were kind of moving on to either being artists or producers, so it left room for me to come in there, and I sort of worked my way up through the ranks and made somewhat of a name for myself, I guess. But I found myself on a lot of the same sessions as Jeff, and sometimes we wouldn't even know. I talked the night before. Okay, I'll talk to you later, bro. The next 10 a.m. the next morning, we just started laughing, give each other a hug, and and off we were. Didn't even know. A lot of times we didn't even know who the artist was that we were working for, so we never talked about it. You working tomorrow? Yeah, I'm working tomorrow. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, I gotta go. Okay, see you later. And then we'd show up at the same session. But
sure.
But wow, man, he was just an incredible person, incredible musician, incredible soulful human being on planet Earth. It was just, it was a huge loss to not only me or the band, but to the musical community and certainly his family.
Mm-hmm. But going back to high school real quick, what that charisma, was there then, even then?
Yeah.
Was he a popular guy in school? Was he?
Well, I wasn't in school with him. He was 3 years older than me, but I was hanging around, he was already legendary then. Even before, Steely and all that stuff, he was just Jeff Porcaro. You're this guy, Jeff Porcaro. He's like this guy. You just...
So
the word of mouth. I mean, there was no internet. I mean, the word of mouth is spread quick amongst, because there wasn't that many musicians then. There wasn't when we were in high school, the band was Steve Porcaro, me and Michael Landau, John Pierce, Carlos Vega was playing with drums with us, God bless his soul. Mm-hmm. And then Jeff and Paige would come sit in with us when we were playing. So we were already sort of being indoctrinated, if you will, into the whole thing. We were all studying music really hard, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a studio musician, but I also wanted to be in a rock and roll band, and I got both, man. And here I sit 36 years later, scratching my head. We're doing all these, interviews, and some people talk about records and stuff that we've done, the stats. I never think about this shit, other people do, and it's kind of like scratching my head. I go, wow, those are big numbers, really? Do we really do all that, And apparently it's all been fact-checked, yes, but... You know, it's also hard to believe it's been 21 years, because I spoke to him the day he passed, you know. And for a long time, actually.
You spoke, what, in the morning?
Yeah. He's like, oh, yeah, man, I'll see you this weekend. You know, have barbecue at the house. I'm going to go clean up the yard. You know, and that's when he got the poison on himself. And it turns out he had a bad heart anyway. He had 2 uncles that died when they were 40 years old. Heart disease, so it was genetic.
Okay. But he didn't know
and
either.
He, you know, smoked and drank. And he was, you know, this whole drug thing that came out, it's so insidious, and I hate the fucking fact, because he was never the bad drug guy. He was the worst. He was the least of all of us back in that era. He would be the guy going, what are you guys doing staying up all night, you idiots, you know? Because it was crazy. In the early 80s and late 70s, early 80s, it was crazy. I mean, I'm not going to deny any of it, but by the time he passed, I mean, there was never... I don't know. People just love to run with the dirty laundry, as Henley wrote, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's not what, you know. And you read these Wikipedia shit. I mean, that's right there. It's like, does anybody ever do any homework on these facts? I mean, the internet is full of shit most of the time, but people believe it. Most people can write their own Wikipedia. So I could say that I'm Jesus Christ, and I mean that with very facetiously. Of course, you know, you can write anything you want. And it lives forever. It's like, you know, why any intelligent person would take pictures of their dicks or something and pass them around, thinking that no one's ever going to find it. You know what I mean? Nobody knows where all this information goes. But anyway, I'm getting off the track. He was never that guy. Never that guy. He just had a genetic predisposition. His arms, his whole thing with his arms hurting and all this. He was always, my arms, my muscles, my arms. It wasn't his muscles. It was the fact that the blood was not getting to the extremities. He had hardening of the arteries at 38 years old.
How long was he complaining of the pain in the arm?
Years. It was debilitating to the point where, like, touring became difficult for him.
Did he think it was carpal tunnel?
Yeah, at one point they were talking about cutting the muscles in his hand. And he was going, don't do that, man. Don't do that. But he kept saying he was going to the doctor all the time, and it turns out he wasn't, you know. So, I mean, that real big, long, hard checkup and, you know, finding out what's, you know, if there's plaque in the veins or any heart blockages or whatever, you know, they would have been able to see that he had artery problems, and that would have been the problem. He could have maybe taken medication. Could have, should have, would have, could have. The fact of the matter is the poison hit him, and it caused a seizure that his heart couldn't handle. And he went right there in the house in front of the family. And, you know, it's weird because everybody was at the hospital. I get the call. Joe Porcaro just left the set. Abe Laboriel Sr. called me on the phone and said, Lukey, Joe Porcaro just left the session. Jeff had a seizure in the hospital. I'm like, what? And I called Mike Porcaro's house, and I got his wife. He said, yeah, Jeff had a seizure. He's at West Hills Hospital in Valley. So I'm like panic struck. I'm like, a seizure? What does that mean? Is he all right? No, we don't know anything. Everybody's going. I get in the car, and I got lost on the way to the hospital. I didn't know where I was, you know, because it was a different part of town. When I got there, the family had left, and I saw his next door neighbor, Jack, who's a doctor. And I rolled up right in front of the emergency room, and I saw Jack come out. I go, Jack, how is he? Is he okay? And Jack just looked at me, shook his head like this. She's like, no. I went, well, what's wrong? Where is he? He just kept going, no. I go, no, what? He's gone. I go, he's gone where? You know, the thought of death that never really occurred to me. I mean, that's an impossibility. Impossible. And, oh, God, this is hard. He says, do you want to see him? And I go, yeah, I want to see him. I mean, I was still shocked, disbelief. I left my car running with the door open in front of me. I walked right into the hospital. Because he was a doctor there, I was able to walk right in. And unfortunately, I was in a room alone. The family had all gone. And there he was on a slab with the shit, you know, still stuck down his throat, and I fucking lost it. I just lost it. I fucking fell out. I was like screaming. I fell out. It was like, it was really difficult. And I just tripped out on that, and I couldn't believe it. And I went, you know, I called somebody, Steve or Mike Porcaro, and said, what the fuck, man? They said, we're at the house. Come to the house. You need to come over here. And we all just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. This is like surreal, some bad nightmare that never happened. But it was very real. And we had to start making phone calls to people. What are we gonna do? I mean, mom, dad, the family, the kids, the whole thing. It's just, it's one of the most horrible things in the world, outside of, finding my own mother dead on the couch on Father's Day a few years back. And it was pretty hard. Losing your own parents and stuff like that, But he was so young. It was like the first family member of mine that I was so desperately close to that passed away on me at a young age. It made no sense. There was that moment in the morning, I'm like, yo, bro, I'll see you this weekend. Yeah, man, I love you. I love you too. I'll talk to you later. At least I got to say that. That was the last thing I said. I love you. And amongst a whole lot of other things that I'm not going to talk about, we were talking about the future and his future and our future as the band. And just, there were some things that we were excited about our album, Kingdom of Desire. And it was cryptic, some of the lyrics that he wrote with us. And he picked the album cover of a skeleton digging itself out of the ground. He was the artist of the band too, and it was almost like his subconscious knew when this shit was coming out. It's a very spiritual person, so I feel him with me always, more so now than ever. And God, it was one of the great losses of my life. Truly an amazing human being, and I've worked with a lot of amazing people. Found myself in the room with many a legend, but you ask anybody that's ever worked with Jeff or ever knew him as a person where that's at, and there just wasn't a cooler person. There wasn't a better musician. He always made everybody sound better. He just made the room better, made everything better. And I can't say that about everybody I've ever met in my life.
Yeah. He was the de facto leader, did you say?
Oh, sure. We all looked up to Jeff. When Jeff said that was the take, we fixed our parts, and he was always right. Because he played magically right away. And he'd give his best shit right away. He'd never hold back.
Right.
And when I say his ideas, like the magical drum fill, like where the fuck did that come from? The intense, wicked groove and the humor. We caught up to a lot of shit. A lot of funny shit together, man. We had a lot of laughs together. Sessions and things that happened to us and road stuff. Some of the best years of my life were spent in the studio with him.
I mean, obviously he has a reputation, as you do as well, for nailing things in one take, right?
Well, he was really one take. I mean, sometimes we get lucky and stuff, but the heart and soul of any track is the drum track. I mean, if the drums are fucked up, you can't use it.
Sure.
Any one of the rest of us could punch a part in or fix a note or something like that.
Sure.
Which is why we never really worried about it. If you made that, I mean, Jeff and Kurt, the thing about magical takes is like you go for it. Now, with multi-track recording, you had a safety net.
Right.
In the old days, you had to bring it on, on the gig.
The drum track had to be one take.
Well, yeah, there was no cut and paste. I mean, you could edit things together, and occasionally that might happen. Like there was a great end vamp on something, but the front part wasn't as good. And, Jeff's time was so good that it was seamless. We real edits with razor blades and tape and shit. Not this like anybody can edit now. You can't. There's
Was he always playing to a click, by the way?
No. Sometimes he would like to play to a click and didn't want us to listen, or sometimes he would go, "You guys listen to the click." And I'm gonna play. When he played with a click, he floated through it. He didn't need it. Sometimes he played so good to it that you couldn't hear the click. And that was before it got. I mean, he used to like to make loops and stuff like that and play to that percussion stuff. Right. So it was more musical instead of this, 10-penny nail being nailed to the forehead.
Sure.
Back in the old days, before machines, I mean, if you wanted to play with a click track, it was like. It was brutal in the phones. I mean, my hearing is messed up from all the years of wearing headphones when I didn't have control of my own volume, and there's clicks and 6 guys vying for level. And, you're wearing headphones for 12 hours a day, every day. By the end of the day, your ears start to close down. You can turn it up a little bit. I can't hear it. You come back the next day, and playing back the track from the night before, and your phones are on the floor going like this, and that was on your head all day long. Your head will take a beating. The ears ring, and that's an irrelevant point to this, but I'm just saying we spent a lot of time in the studio.
Did it make a difference though if he was working with Toto? Would he stretch it out? I mean, he wasn't under the pressure to get one take, right? I mean, under that.
No, that's just how he just worked. It was like, let's get this done.
So even with Toto, he was still nail it.
You'd know it. I mean, it was,
Gotcha.
you just look at him. I mean, you could just look at his body language, and if he had a track and somebody made a mistake, he would just look at you like, you better not stop. I mean, he had a way of looking like through the top of his glasses, and that could be a look of like, you know, get back in the pocket there, bro, or looking at you like, yeah, this is happening, you know. I could read his body language really well. I mean, him and Paige were like, those two guys together, man, when they sat down, man, it was really hard to fuck it up. You know, they were really soul brothers, you know. We were all brothers, but, you know, that was the team, you know.
Mm-hmm. Was it really just you guys on Beat It?
Yeah.
Is that just you guys?
That's me and Jeff.
That's you and Jeff, right?
Yeah.
And Eddie on the solo. And
Eddie did the solo. That was a bastard track. I mean, what happened was they had cut another version of it, and Eddie played a solo on it, and Michael had done the lead vocal. And when Eddie did the solo, he cut the 2-inch tape, and that negated the sympty code. So they couldn't sync it back up. So me and Jeff got sent a 24-track tape with Michael's lead vocal, Eddie's guitar solo, first generation, and Michael playing 2 and 4 on a drum case and a sympty code. And Jeff goes, I'll go out and let me do the drum part to this. And there was really nothing to play to. There was kind of, you could hear through the headphones Michael's the mix of what was going on kind of in the tune. So Jeff had that to play to. So we did a little roadmap, and it was just me, Jeff, and an engineer named Umberto Gatica at Sunset Sound. Quincy wasn't even there when we were doing this.
Did Quincy hire you?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, you got to fix this for me. I'm working over here. I am on a time crunch. This all got fucked up. We had already been working on the Thriller record on others' tracks. And he goes, look, I need you to do the rock and roll this up for me a little bit, because Eddie's on it. And I said, oh, sure, man. Ed and I are dear friends, still are. And so we did this. So Jeff got the drum take, like second take, he nailed it, of course. First take was just finding somewhere to center to play the groove to, because there was nothing going on. Kept going, turn up Michael's vocal to the point where it was so loud in Jeff's phones, just so he could hear some kind of music besides that was all he had. And there was nothing playing eighth notes in between that. And so he did that, and then I went out and then I played, you know, and at first, you know, I got the Marshalls on, I quadruple tracked it and did all this stuff like that, and then I played the bass part. And we sent this back to Quincy, and he was like, it's great, but your guitar, it's too heavy. I'll never get this on R&B radio. I go, well, you said rock and roll. He goes, use the smaller amp and turn down the distortion a little bit. So I did that, sent it back to him, and he liked that. He says, now come back over here tomorrow, and me, you, and Michael will go through. And then we came up with Michael just had over and over again. I added the I said, we gotta change it up. It's so too monotonous, you know. And I was going, I didn't really, you know, I didn't really understand what this was gonna be, you know. But like I said, I mean, it took a lot of, after Jeff nailed it seamlessly right away, I had to, you know, put everything else back together again. Jeff was, well, the great thing about Jeff is he would always stay after school. I mean, he could have left. Yeah. But he sat there and hung with me. And we just kind of like produced our own parts and stuff like that. And then I got with Michael and Quincy, we you know, honed and fine-tuned the rest of it, you know. And that became Beat It, you know. And we, you know, and then Steve Porcaro did all the synth stuff, down, and all that stuff. So I mean, that's two songs that was really basically, you know, that and Human Nature, which was basically Toto, Michael singing, written by Steve Porcaro. And then we did the McCartney duet, so we had a lot to do with that record. Although you never really hear anybody mention the word Toto and Michael Jackson Thriller. I mean, you have to really kind of dig deep to get
people
love
who
for that.
know.
Yeah, but I mean, the media just you know, they just have always, you know, discarded us like we were like, oh yeah, those studio guys, whatever. Like
were you ever used to that,
like anybody can do the job.
But that's a good point, though. Were you used to that, as you said, starting at 19, doing sessions? I mean, did you kind of get used to being, like, oh, people don't know my name for being involved?
Well, they knew the names on the records if they bothered to read them, but
sure.
Outside of people that read liner notes and stuff like that. And,
sure.
I mean, like, we'd get reviews, like Thriller got reviewed, it's like, in Rolling Stone, and they said, like, somehow Quincy Jones managed to get the guys in Toto to play with some taste.
They said that?
Yeah, that was like a quote from the review there. It was like, Jesus, guys, come on, stop. Like, they hated to admit that we had anything to do with it. They still do. They were not even acknowledged as ever existing in, like, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I mean...
No, that's fine, but I mean, I think we're also the only band that ever turned down the cover of Rolling Stone as a fuck you back to that.
I like that.
Even all the punk rockers are supposed to be punks, they managed to, like, cow down to the great Jan Wenner, who now flies around in a corporate jet, negating his whole "I'm a rebel" bullshit.
Totally.
He's just a rich cunt,
Yeah. Amen. And this was something Jeff was behind too, obviously, right?
No, he was the one that said, we're not going to do this.
Nice.
We're not going to fuck that guy. It was funny because he was working with Springsteen later and ran into John Landau, and I said, like, what is it with you? Like, we just became, because our first album came out the same time as the Sex Pistols, the division of what, it was like, we were the antithesis of that. And I, like, Steve Johnson's a great guy, I mean, like, you'd be surprised who I'm friends with, what I mean? The people that I hang out with, I mean, kids go to the same schools, stuff like that, but, it would just be like, what's up with this hatred for us? And then nobody really could give us a straight answer about that. We just were the band. They didn't think we were really a band, but we were a high school band. We started out, we were the second generation. David and Jeff had the first version of Still Life. It's called Rural Still Life. Then Steve Porcaro had Still Life, and that's when I joined. And we had the second generation version of that, and then they all came to play with us, and that became Boz Scaggs' band, which became Toto, coming out of Steely Dan, Boz Scaggs, all this stuff. At one point, right after Boz, the Silk Degrees tour, Irving came to me and Jeff and asked us to do the Steely Dan tour. They were going to do the tour for the Royal Scam.
Okay.
And I started rehearsing with Denny Diaz. And it was the Asia. It was before. Was it Asia? No, I forget. I don't know. It was '77, so whatever was going on at that time, whatever album was out at that time, I was Steely Dan fanatic. And we actually started rehearsing, and then it all fell apart because people were asking for too much money or whatever like that. And Donald Walters said, "Fuck it." And I always wanted to play in that band. Had a chance to jam with both of them separately, but never as Steely Dan or play on record with them.
Right.
But that was Jeff's favorite band. All we listened to on the bus was Hendrix, Steely, and Miles and stuff, and old R&B records. Jeff was great. Like, man, let's listen to this. Just check this out. And even if we listen to it 100 times, point out the little parts, and we get into the little, the nuance of little rhythm guitar parts or little bass parts and stuff. Just check this out. Roll it back. Sitting on a bus, and as he draws cartoons of all the guys in the band.
Jeff.
Oh, my God.
He drew cartoons.
Some of the most scathing caricatures you could ever imagine. I have some in my office. He had a wicked way of viewing the world. He had a laugh.
What was his view of the world, would you say?
Well, the only thing that really mattered to him in the whole world was his kids, I mean, and music, and all of us, family, Loved to work, just loved to play, man. Loved to be in a recording studio. That was really where he felt most at home.
Could he be cynical? I mean, could he be?
Oh, incredibly.
Yeah.
And really acerbic wit. He could be very deep, man. Like, he'd sit in a room, like, he could, like say we'd have some wild night out after a gig or something like that, or even if something funny happened to us, he'd just crazy shit, man. Crazy shit. I remember... Yeah, funny things happened around, and he was pretty, straight ahead. But when he took it out, man, it went all the way. He never did anything halfway, man. It was on.
You mentioned Springsteen, by the way. I know there was a talk, or I've read Springsteen had offered Jeff, right? He wanted him to go on tour with him, I believe. and I think he passed it up because he had worked with Toto. Do you remember this?
Yeah, they wanted him for a year or something like that. You know, at the time, Jeff didn't want to tour that much. He was kids, and he had an allegiance to what we had done. We had just done the Kingdom of Desire record. He had done the Human Touch record or something. Mm-hmm. And him and Bruce had just met, you know, and they liked each other and stuff. But right at that time, he said, "No, I can't do it. I got to go out with my guys. We already have a tour booked." And then right away, and as soon as we were done mixing the album, we were just about ready to start rehearsals, and that's when he passed. And we had everything booked. The tour was already sold out. It was like big arenas, and at that point, we were coming off of our greatest hits record was like #1 for a year in Holland, and we had like 3 or 4 nights in the arenas that was sold out. It was going to be a really successful tour. We were excited about it because we were back down to we'd already tried it was back down to the quartet with background singers and percussion. We were just going to go out and hit it, make more rock and roll, a little bit less poppy. We wanted to take it in that direction. And then it just was like, what are we going to do? He's gone. We leave in 3 weeks. What are we going to do? 40 people on the payroll, sold out tour. If we don't go, it's not going to help anybody.
Was there anyone who was saying, guys, we can't do this?
No, at first, of course, we were like, we can't do this.
That was the initial reaction was we just stop everything.
I didn't think we were going to, it affected a lot of people very deeply in ways that I can't really describe verbally. We were at first, don't even talk about it. Mm-hmm. We couldn't, how do we go on? It's like Zeppelin without Bonham and shit, Yeah. And that was even, who can't, there's not a living soul that could replace Jeff. No. And there were guys that maybe might have been more obvious choices, but we didn't want to go with anybody that would remotely try to play or like Jeff or even be from Los Angeles. So I had worked with Simon Phillips, with Jeff Beck and Carlos Santana on a tour in 1986, and we'd stayed in contact, and David had just seen The Who do Tommy with Simon playing drums. I mean, Jeff loved his playing the wild, because Jeff was incredible. Like, I'd go to rehearsals early and I'd hear this unbelievable drum soloing going on. I mean, staggering chops and ridiculous, I'd open up the door and go, what the fuck, man? You got to do that in front of people. It's like, and he'd be like, classic Jeff, fuck that shit, man. I don't want to do that, man.
He never did drum solos, right?
I've heard him do them. He would go practice every day, man. He'd always be there early and then hanging out. And when nobody was looking, that's when he'd play all the shit. And I'd let him play, and then I'd open up the door and go, okay, what the fuck, man? Because me and him were usually really on time, really there early.
Right.
And he'd go, I don't want to do that.
To go back, though, did you have to audition for Jeff Porcaro at any point? We were talking, he saw you play.
Well, you knew me in high school.
But I'm saying he had to obviously heard you.
No, sure, we played together. But when Jeff and Dave were playing the band, it's like they didn't tell me it was an audition, but I knew kind of it was. Everybody in town wanted to be the guitar player in the band. I was like the last guy that probably should have been the guitar player.
Right.
But he saw something else in me besides just the guy who's the studio guy.
Yeah.
He saw the guy that was a crazy rock and roll guy that was going to get out there and be a showman as well as being. And I played, like a lot of those guys, they were more jazz guys that would crank up. Like Larry Carlton wasn't a rock and roller, and he would be the first guy to tell you that. Even though he could play with those great, some life-changing stuff. Like for me, when I heard him playing bebop with a distorted sound, I said, that's it. That's the shit that I want to be doing. But whereas he came from a jazz background, I was a rock guy that had a little bit of jazz sensibility, harmonically speaking. I'm not a jazz guitarist, nor have I ever labeled myself such a thing, although I'm a huge fan of it. And I can play with guys and I can hang, but I just came about it from a different era, from a different approach. You know what I mean?
Well, Miles wanted to hire you, right?
He did, and he wanted me because of the rock and roll aspect. I'm going, Miles. I'm not really thinking Mike Stern and all the McLaughlin, the list of guys there before me. Are you sure? I like that rock and roll shit. Because he played with us, and as a matter of fact, him and Jeff, exchanged artwork, and he played on our album because of it, because of Jeff's art. And he just dug us. We were with him for a week.
Cool.
And he took a shine to us little white boys from the valley, you know what I mean? And Miles was great. We've been great stories with him, but no, I mean, Jeff just saw something in me that others didn't. He saw things, and he thought that would be, he told Paige, that's the shit we need, is the young rock and roll guy. I didn't even see, all I wanted to do was be in a band with them. So I went down to Dad when they were doing demos for the first, before the first album, before the Boz Skaggs tour that I did, that he recommended me for. I would be the guy that come in and playing what those other guys wouldn't play. Crank up my amp all the way, play with a Les Paul, not a 335, and be funny and more outgoing or whatever. I wouldn't be he knew that. Then he saw me play live in the high school band where I'd be jumping all over the stage doing some really stupid shit, that only you could get away with in high school. Fearless. There was a Fearless thing, and I could sing a bit too. So he thought that would be a good. I mean, ask those guys. I don't know. I mean, I got lucky. I really got. There wasn't like a cattle call of music. There were some people pissed off that they didn't get the call, and there were some people that even got mad at me for it. And I never did anything to anybody. I never scammed my way in front of line or nothing like that. I didn't pay anybody off or suck anybody's dick. Mm-hmm. I was in the right place at the right time. But then Jeff really had more to do with me being in the band than Dave or anybody else. And also the start of my session career, getting the thumbs up from Jeff. My stock went way, way, way up, and all of a sudden Jeff and Dave Jeff and Paige Luke, man, he must be the cat, Yeah. So, but then I had to spring it, Mm-hmm. And my ability to morph from styles, and I was really studying all the records that my favorite guitar player, session musicians did, and all the intricacies of their parts, and I sort of knew what the job entailed, and I was able to get a shot to do that and work my way up the scene. And I look back at it now as some of the most fun, wonderful times of my life, and here I sit all these years later looking back going, it's been an amazing run, a great career, and I'm still out here doing it. Very thankful, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for the Porcaro family, so I certainly owe an awful lot to them as my brothers and sisters and all the kids. All of our kids grew up. We were really close-knit family, and I love them and do anything for any of them.
Right on, man. Steve, thank you for doing this, man. I really appreciate it, man.
Happy to do it.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. No problem.
I did that. What? Do it.